Greetings, everybody. This is Mr. Beckstrom again, and today we're going to be talking about Chapter 6, Section 1, Reading and Constructing Graphs. So first we'll talk about the bar graphs. Bar graphs, I said barred. Bar graphs are used to display and compare the sizes of different but related quantities. As you can see here, we have the different types of animals that people have, and then the number of people that own them. So if I was going to say how many people owned dogs, I would go to dogs, see how tall my bar is. It corresponds with the number 8 there. So I could easily say 8 people out of the people that we surveyed owned a dog. All right. The lengths of the bars measure the magnitude, and we have two different types of graphs, bar graphs that we usually see. They're going to be vertical or horizontal. With the vertical graphs, the bars are going to be going up and down. The types of data is going to be listed on the bottom or the x-axis, and the magnitude or quantity is going to be listed on the y-axis or on the side. A horizontal bar graph is just the opposite. We have the types of data listed on the side or the y-axis, and the quantity or magnitude listed on the bottom or the x-axis. We can also do what's called a multiple bar graph. This is where we have more than one item that we're comparing side by side. You can see an example of it here where we're comparing both imports and exports for each one of these years. That might be significant if we're trying to see if we're importing or exporting more in a given year. If I was looking at this multiple bar chart, which is actually a double bar chart, I could see that I'm importing a whole lot more than I'm exporting. So that would give me some very useful, viable information. Now, drawing bar graphs. So normally, bar graphs are created from a set of measurement numbers, measured values that is pre-existing. We have a lot of factors to consider, like the number of items being compared and whether to make it vertical or horizontal. The difference between those two is mainly an aesthetic thing, just how it looks. You can see page 374 for a good step-by-step guide for creating the bar graphs. Oops, let me delete that. And then we can talk about some line graphs. So some line graphs is a little bit more rigid in the rules. We usually put the time always on the bottom of the x-axis and the number or quantity on the y-axis or the side. And what we do is we plot each point. So we would look at our set of data and we can say, hey, January we sold 20 cars, February we sold 35 cars, March we sold 25 cars, April we sold 40 cars, on and on. After we plotted each point, we'd connect the points together with straight lines, and this gives us our line graph. It's very useful in seeing how different trends of data appear from year to year, whether we have increases or decreases. You'll often see that in stock market prices, other financial systems. Drawing a line graph. Like I said, it's usually created from an existing source of data, just like your bar charts. There's a good step-by-step guide on page 381, so take a look at that. And the last kind of graph that we're going to be looking at is called the circle graph, or more commonly known as a pie chart. This is where we look at each item in a percent compared to the whole. So we can kind of compare those items and the quantities of those items and the percentages of those items. So for example, if I had all of these students' grades and I wanted to kind of see how they compared with each other, how many students were getting B's compared to A's compared to C's, the pie chart would be a great chart for me to record that data on, because I can easily see here that most students got a B compared to any of the other grades, followed by a C, followed by an A, followed by a D. I can also see that approximately 2 to 3 times the number of students received an A compared to a D. And so it gives me a lot of useful information like that. Constructing a circle graph. So once again, we have to put our data into percent form, and it's usually easier to use some type of graphing tool. Microsoft Excel is a real good one. They do nice pie charts. If you're going to do this by hand, you would need a protractor and a compass to create your circle, and a protractor to get your degrees. Each percent you would convert to a decimal and then multiply that by your degrees to get the number of approximate degrees to use to create your sectors of your pie chart. Alright, and let's take a look at an example. So this is from the first question, and excuse me, let me put that right. Okay, so the first one is, how many people own hamsters? And this is from the bar chart that we started with. Alright, so go to hamsters, go up to the top, and go over, and it looks like approximately 5. And how about what percent does the number of people who own goldfish exceed the number of people who own rabbits? Well, that's a pretty tricky question, so let's take a look at what we do. So the first answer was 5. The second answer, what we first need to do is we need to find out the difference between goldfish and rabbits. So 6 minus 4 is 2. So that's the difference between those two. Now we're going to set up a proportion using the difference over the rabbits, which in this case is the smaller amount, and it's also because if you go back here, the word of corresponds to the bottom of that fraction. We learned that from a different section on proportions. So we set up the difference over the quantity that we are comparing. We set that up as an x over 100 in order to find the percentage, and in this case the percentage is 50%. So answer to that is 50%. Take a look at the next one here. So let's try to set up a vertical double bar chart using the following data regarding monthly zoo visitors. Let's say you had a small zoo and you're trying to find out how many visitors you had each month for a 3-month period, and you wanted to break that down into adult visitors and child visitors. So what I would do here is I would make, you could do a vertical or horizontal. I've chosen to do a vertical double bar graph, and I put down here, I'm comparing the adult visitors with the child visitors. I color coded it so I can check each month, and I correspond the height of the individual bars with the quantities on the y-axis or the left hand side. So you can see, as for April, I had 300 adult visitors and 200 child visitors. I might use that information to decide how much of my zoo I want to dedicate to children and how much I want to dedicate to adults, things like that. Alright, the final example, answer the following questions about the circle graph. So this is the circle graph or the bar chart that we looked at earlier. Excuse me, not bar chart, the pie chart that we looked at earlier. So the first question is, what percent of students received a C or better? The second question is, how many total grades are shown? So how do we do this? We'll take a look at it. Well, what does C or better mean? Well, a C or better means an A, a B, or a C. So I'm simply just going to add up those 3 percentages. So 14.3% got A's, 42.9% got B's, and 35.7% got C's. Totals 92.9%. And then the next question is how many total grades are shown? Well, you can see the actual number is next to those percentages, so I just added those up, and I get 28 total grades. All right, if you have any questions, make sure give me an email or call me during my business hours, Monday through Friday from 10 to 11. And thank you, and have a great day.